Welcome everyone. This is Turning Point Australia. We're here to bring you a bunch of different discussions, different thought leaders in the industry that have lost their jobs. Now, when it comes to what's happening in this country, we're having a very serious problem. We've forgotten our values. We've forgotten where we've come from. We've forgotten the blood that was spilt by our Anzac soldiers, many of which were fathers of the men that are here today. Now, the discussion we're about to have, we're going to look at what's going on in this country. And it's brought to you by Turning Point in Australia. It's an organization I'm heading up and bringing out here. And we've finally established a presence here online. We've finally established, I think, over 40,000 followers in less than 3 weeks to give these young men and older men a platform to speak and to get the message out to people. We do have a donate link. If you guys want to help this not-for-profit organization, that's how we keep things running. That's how we keep our staff on board. And it'd be greatly appreciated. These are tough times. Only donate what you can. But it's greatly appreciated and it really helps us do what we need to do. Now, you're going to look at this platform and you're going to be like, hang on a sec. We've got 6 straight dudes having a discussion about Australia. Where are the women? Don't worry. We have the ladies lined up every day. In the next few days, we've got a nurse. We've got not-for-profit organizations that we'll be interviewing, and we're going to have a women's panel next week. Now, today, I've got a real star-spangled panel. I would say people like Mark Latham, John Larter, Graham Hood, Mac, and Alex Cooney are legends. Mark Latham is a former parliamentarian. He's a sitting parliamentarian. He is the former leader of the Labor Party, Labor being the key word, and now he's the leader of the New South Wales One Nation Party. John Larter, a former paramedic, and we've got Graham, who's a former Qantas pilot. We have Mac, who is a current teacher, and we have Alexander Cooney, who is a former police officer. Now, what's going on in this country affects all of these men. And if there's one thing we all have in common, it's that we've all left something that we used to think was for us, but is no longer for us. So, gentlemen, I want to welcome you all to the show, and we're going to get started with the clip. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're going to start this segment with a clip from one of our American cousins across the pond. Governor Ron DeSantis is a real thought leader over there and a real leader when it comes to the other governors. There have been a number of mandates that he has not agreed with. There have been a number of mandates which he's in fact gone against the grain on. When it comes to mask mandates, he's sought to fine many schools. He's sought to say that you cannot enforce these mandates on young children. When it comes to finding other treatments to COVID, he's actually pushed that as well. So in a sec, we're going to play a clip from him and we're going to see exactly what he had to say, especially about what's going on in Australia.
It can't happen here. You know, if you guys look what's going on in Australia right now, you know, they're enforcing, after a year and a half, they're still enforcing lockdowns by the military. And that's not a free country. It's not a free country at all. In fact, I mean, I wonder why we would still, have the same diplomatic relations when they're doing that. I mean, is Australia freer than China, communist China right now? I don't know. The fact that that's even a question tells you something has gone dramatically off the rails with some of this stuff. And so I think.
Ouch. Mark, I want to bring you in first. Mark Latham, leader of New South Wales One Nation. That's pretty scathing, as I'm sure you'd probably agree. What were your thoughts when you sort of heard that from the governor? Have we lost Mark? Mac, you're always ready to go. Mac, were you as shocked as I was?
Yeah, look, very shocked, especially when America, the United States, is supposed to be our biggest ally, our #1 ally. When you've got governors in America basically saying that, is Australia free and should we even trust them? Because it looks like, we're on the same par as communist China. Then yeah, we need to be worried, but also the world needs to be worried.
Graham, we've spilt a lot of blood in the wars that we fought overseas with the Americans, and your father was a great Anzac soldier. If he was here, I know it's hard to speak on his behalf, but where do you think his mindset would be at hearing those comments from Governor Ron DeSantis?
Oh, I know his mindset perfectly, and I have no qualms in speaking for him. He'd be ashamed, he'd be disgusted. And it'd be really sad that we've allowed ourselves to degenerate into a country that everybody's got the spotlight on at the moment. It puts a whole new tilt on Anzac Day for me. As Australians, we really need to reverse this quickly so we can stand on Anzac Day with pride once more. We've got to stop the rot.
John, we've seen an interesting thing happen in the last few weeks. We've seen the public completely shift on the opinion of cops, and as a paramedic, you're used to having a lot of interactions with the cops because they often protect you from more dangerous situations when you're doing your job. What's your view of what's been going on in the country, and particularly in relation to the cops?
Yeah, look, I think they've been put in a very difficult situation and been asked to do the dirty work of people like Scott Morrison and these politicians like Gladys Berejiklian and Dan Andrews and the like that are just so out of touch with reality. I mean, it speaks volumes to me now that the police commanders aren't even standing with the politicians at these daily press conferences. They've stepped aside, and I think with good reason. I can't believe that they're being asked to do what they're doing in the field. I mean, I know they're not comfortable with it. We're seeing some behaviour that, down in Melbourne. I mean, that episode the other day where that poor bloke was thrown into the concrete and his head was smashed. I mean, that was sickening. I can't believe that stuff's going on in Australia. It was just unprovoked. I mean, I've been to numerous situations similar to that. And there's no way in the world that I would have expected that anyone in the police would do that. I mean, that was no way to resolve conflict, and it demonstrates that we're in some respects losing the battle with this situation, and we need to take back our country, because we can't have that going on.
Alex, Cooney, we've seen a situation with the cops where there have been calls by people like Craig Kelly to have an inquiry into the treatment of that. And just today we heard about that same copper that John Latta was just talking about then and alluding to, that smashed that person's head into the ground. They didn't even, the way that they did it was the person's hands were behind their back and their face just smashed into the pavement. Do you think we need a royal commission into how that's happened, or an inquiry?
Yeah, of course we do. That's why I'm here today. The police are going beyond their powers, illegally, unlawfully. It has to be stopped. If we don't stand up, if the troops don't start standing up, and if the Australian public don't start standing up for their freedom, so to speak, honourably, like respectfully, we're going to lose it all, because the powers that be are making it very clear that they want ownership of everything, including your body,
Mac, the teachers have their deadline coming up for these mandated jabs. What's the thinking of the teaching community at this point in time?
Well, there's thousands of teachers that are just panicking. They're just in despair. They can't believe look, I've only been a teacher for 5 years, but there are teachers that have been teaching for 40 years, and their worth and their value has literally come down to a double vaccination by a certain date. That's disgusting. Like, every politician and health bureaucrat that made that decision and that stands by that decision should be ashamed of themselves, and history won't remember them too kindly. But teachers are just in absolute fear and panic. There is no job security, no financial security. They don't know what is going to happen after November the 8th, because that's the deadline. So, yeah, and it's not just teachers, it's all industries now that have been affected. But, we knew that once they went for the aged care workers and the healthcare workers and the teachers, they'll go for everyone. And once they go for all the adults, they'll come for the kids.
Yeah, Graham, how are we going to pull the country together after all of this? I mean, your father fought so hard for the freedoms, and we just seem to give them away and squander them. How can we bring a country together, especially while we've got a prime minister who's on the warpath with China? And after all this, he's basically like, all right, let's all forget it all. Let's forget it happened, and let's just focus on a war and come together. I mean, is that any way to run a country?
No, it's not, and we need leadership. We've seen the country fracture into 7 smaller states, like 7 different kingdoms. But you know what? There's a really good spirit developing, and there are a lot of people watching this tonight who are in abject despair. But I want to bring a bit of focus on what's possible, because things are really turning. I'm seeing a big shift happening, and we're seeing people start to stand up. And I'd like to, if I may, Joel, read an email that I got from
Please do, yeah, absolutely.
a police officer. I think this tells a very good story about where we're really heading. A group of sworn Victorian police members have started a group that was born out of a divisive Facebook post made by the Police Association, or the TPAV in Victoria, in early September. The Facebook statement said that the TPAV would support a vaccine mandate by Victoria Police, despite not knowing that what legislation or policy would be used to mandate. The group has significantly grown in size since the start of September, and the members in the group comprise of vaccinated and unvaccinated members who are pro-choice and believe the jab should not be mandated, and employees of Victoria Police should not risk losing their jobs over vaccination status. And here's where I think we can see hope. And I want people to think, when I read the next bit, think about all the police that you've seen in action in Victoria. I can tell you from the hundreds of people that are messaging me that a lot of those police are not happy. They're not happy with the way they're being used. And what I'm about to read gives us great hope for this country. Within the next week or so, a national union for the police force of Australia-wide will be launched. The union will provide and represent the members legally and lawfully without interference from the police employer. Now hear this, this union already represents 9,000 nurses and doctors. We see this as a better option for members moving forward, as our current union, the TPAV, does not support or represent all members despite our police members funding them. Now, this was sent to me because the people in the Victoria Police are not allowed to share this stuff, so I've been asked to share it on their behalf. We encourage all members who are pro-choice and would like more support to go to policeforfreedom.org. That's capital P, policeforfreedom.org, and fill out the survey. Now, that gives me hope. The police are pushing back, the doctors and nurses are pushing back, and that's the spirit of Australia. That's what we've got to capture. That's what the Anzacs died for. That's what the diggers went to war for. They went to war so that we wouldn't have to have conversations like this, gentlemen. So we've really got to stand up now, not tomorrow, not the next day, now.
John, you've got a court case happening this week. What are the biggest things you really want to see to come out of that as a result?
Well, look, obviously we want the mandate, the health mandate overturned, which, we think, is completely ludicrous. Everyone should have a choice. So ultimately, that's the end goal, is to overturn that crazy mandate, which is unworkable. I'll give you an example. I'm advised today that Deniliquin Hospital, that I spoke about yesterday, with the 7:30 report, mind you, they certainly aren't on the same side as you are, Joel. But look, nonetheless, I'm told today that they're now reducing their beds from 26 down to 16 because they want to look after the staff. Now, isn't that wonderful that they're wanting to do that? I mean, the reason they're wanting to do that is because they don't have any. They're sending out 50 to 70 requests to agencies a week, and they're getting one resume back. There is no staff. They've got managers working on the floor. They've got nurse unit managers on the floor. They've got educators working on the floor. They've got no staff. And I can tell you that this is the picture in every health facility in New South Wales, probably Australia. And it's got nothing to do with the pandemic. It's got to do with pre-existing staff shortages. And what this COVID mess is doing, because of the distraction of and mismanagement of people like Brad Hazzard, is causing further issues in our health system and further strain. And this crazy mandate is just another example of how out of touch this bloke is with his community. I mean, he's willing to put lives at risk by taking frontline health staff out of the system, which is already in a vulnerable situation. So that's the reason I'm going to the Supreme Court, to overturn this craziness. And, we'll continue through platforms like yours, Joel, to make this known, because, you know, if we don't put political pressure on these people, we're not going to see any change. I mean, I demonstrated yesterday that there's barely an ambulance station on the north coast that they're not trying to fill a shift for. So, you know, they are putting lives at risk. It's not through COVID. It's through the fact that, you know, there is no staff, and come the 30th there'll be even less.
It's the political pressure that we've got going on in this country. It really needs to be ramped up, and a lot of the political parties, they need to change their strategy in what's going on. Now, I was really hoping to get Mark Latham on, and I'm still trying to get him on by phone, guys, technical difficulties. But that is one of the things I want to ask him about. What is going on with the Labor Party? What is going on with a party that has the word Labor in it? It makes no sense that they're not representing their constituency. But what's concerning to me even more is the damage between the police and the people. I mean, Alex, how are we going to mend this relationship with the cops? I mean, these are the people. Who else are you going to call if something goes wrong? Of course, you call the cops.
That's right. And at the end of the day, the police are the community too. It's up to the troops. It's up to the police. What the police aren't being told, they're being fed fear narratives from mainstream media. They get to work, they get a double barrel of fear pushed onto them, and then direct orders to do these actions. Now, these actions are illegal. They're unlawful. However, police haven't got that information yet. They need to get that information, and that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get this information to the police, that these orders, these directions that they're following are unlawful. When they know that, they can stand against the directions they're being given. Then the investigations can start to higher up the chain as to where these things came from.
I've got a female former police officer coming on next week, and I'm really looking forward to getting her perspective on, you know, how we move forward from this as well, because it's a serious problem. I don't think people realize what's coming. We've got a lot of big problems coming, and when Black Lives Matter has its next iteration that wants to defund the police rather than reform the police, we're going to have some serious problems. That, don't get me wrong, you know, the police, you know, they've mucked up a lot of things, and that they're instead of giving someone a fine for a mask, why don't you give them a mask rather than give them a $5,000 fine? This is the idiocy we're dealing with here, and they've been a very blunt tool to use in this pandemic. But look, I want to come back to you, John. You know, we've been seeing a lot of solutions put forward, like rapid antigen testing. Is this something that we could make work with, especially some of the paramedics that are on the front lines?
Yeah, look, that is a perfect alternative, Joel. I mean, rapid antigen testing would provide better control measures anyway. I mean, because you're testing basically every day to see whether somebody does or doesn't have the virus. I mean, we know that the fact that you can pass on the virus whether you're vaccinated or not vaccinated. So that's not really the issue here. The issue is about how we best protect the community, and the best way to do that is to test daily and to operate with those protective clothing mechanisms that we have in place, and yeah, that's a perfectly good option.
I've really respected Tanya Davies really pushing that option. I mean, it's a no-brainer in my mind, and that's something that Ron DeSantis has really pushed in Florida. Mac, where do we go from here with this stuff? I mean, we're nearing these deadlines for the teachers. I mean, where do we go?